Hello everyone, I'm Captain Courageous and I review old school modules and games and try to give them a fun and informative analysis. This week I'm reviewing Gazetteer 1, the Grand Duchy of Karameikos, the D&D supplement that began the legendary and award-winning Gazetteer series. So just sit back, relax, and let's take a deep delve into this classic Gazetteer, the Grand Duchy of Karameikos. Just a real quick couple of channel announcements before I begin. We finally hit 10,000 subscribers, and I'd like to thank everyone for their help and assistance in getting to this number, and I guess we're on the road to 100,000. We'll see what happens over the next several months. But please continue to like, comment, and share when you can, as that helps with the YouTube algorithm and who YouTube presents this video to. Also, I've added the PayPal tip jar link in the comments, and some of you have been very generous, so thank you very much. Alright, now that the channel business is out of the way, let's begin. Gazetteer 1, the Grand Duchy of Karameikos, was first published in April 1987 and written by the venerable Aaron Alston as the first supplement in what would become a venerable series of gazetteers meant to cover the known world first introduced in the Isle of Dread module 6 years before. Up until this point, Karameikos had been lightly touched on in a variety of B and X series modules, most notably B6, the Veiled Society, which is really a must-have for the internal politics of Karameikos' capital city of Specularum, and a great murder mystery scenario for beginning characters. B10, Night's Dark Terror, introduces elements that would come to define Karameikos and its history going forward, including the introduction of a mysterious dogmen race, the Hatalkans, the history of the Trollodar, and more. Alston does a great job here as he draws heavily from these modules to wrangle together the various aspects to present the background and history of the setting. Also of note is Castle Caldwell and Beyond, which is a series of 4 mini-adventures set in Karameikos. Further, Alston also suggests placing B3, Palace of the Silver Princess, in the similarly named Haven, and Castellan Keep in the Altenteps Mountains, and that is inferred to be the eponymous keep from B1, Keep on the Borderlands. The time frame of the Gazetteer is 1000 AC, or 1000 years after the crowning of the first Theatian emperor, as are all the Gazetteer supplements going forward. Formerly, the Duchy of Karameikos was a land of loose settlements and noble houses, with no former ruler or king. It was conquered 100 years prior by the Empire of Thyatis, and by conquered, they took this capital city of Marilenev, renamed it Specularum, and left a garrison there, and for the most part the lives of the rest of the Trollodaran people were left unchanged. That is until about 30 years ago, when Stephen Karameikos, a duke of the well-established Duchy of Machetos in Thyatis, traded his ancestral lands to the Empire for ownership of the Trollodaran region and a guarantee of autonomy. Machetos was a wealthy and well-developed holding. While Trollodara had great promise of wealth, it would need much time, effort, and expense before its infrastructure was up to the task of providing steady coin for the Empire. Thus, the deal was struck. Wisely, Stefan named his holding the Grand Duchy of Karameikos rather than Kingdom, the implication being that the land was still a holding of the Empire of Thyatis and therefore not a land ripe for sacking. Even still, upon arrival in his new land, he faced a small uprising from the established Trollodaran nobles, led by the Marilenev clan. The men and heirs of that clan then died in the failed rebellion, but the house remained, led by the bitter widow Magda, who still plots and schemes behind the Duke's back to this day. However, with her holdings being rather minor, her bite is mostly toothless, a fact that only inflames the older woman's bitterness more. After the Marilenev rebellion was put down, there were several more attempts on Duke Stefan's life, but after stubbornly refusing to accept assassination, the rest of the Trollodaran nobles fell in line and swore fealty to the Duke. To further cement his power, the Duke put out a call to Thyatin noble families, primarily the second-borns, who, as part of their status, would receive rulership training, but have no prospects of actual rulership due to the continued good health of their older siblings. promising rich lands and holdings if they were brave and stout enough to tame them. Answering that call was the Duke's own cousin, Ludwig von Hendricks, Philip Forleo, a successful merchant, Shalane Halloran, a nobleman and cleric of note. His niece, Alina Halloran, is the same cleric Alina from the D&D basic box set, and she is a member of the Order of the Griffin. Desmond Kelvin also answered the call. He is an officer that was crucial in helping the Duke put down the Marlenev rebellion. From the style of dress to the naming conventions of the Traldarn noble houses, Radu, Torenescu, Marlenev, and the creatures such as the Nosferatu, there is a distinct Eastern European feel to the setting. In fact, due to the autonomous nature of the Traldarn noble houses prior to the occupation of Theodas, some of the noble houses are infected with lycanthropy and vampirism. Although Stefan Karameikos came to Traldar in 970 AC, renaming his newly acquired lands the Grand Duchy of Karameikos, the duchy is still a wild and untamed land. The northern areas of the fledgling country are rife with orcs and other humanoids that threaten nearby villages and towns. There are criminal organizations vying for power as well. There's the Veil Society, run by Clan Radu, that sports a protection racket based in the capital city of Specularum, as well as the Iron Ring Slavers, an evil criminal organization based in the Black Eagle Barony, which itself is run by Duke Karameikos' own cousin, Ludwig von Hendricks. Then there are the various and somewhat conflicting religions. The Church of Karameikos is an imported religion from Theodas and followed by most of the Phaeacian nobles. The traditional religion of the lands, the Church of Tralladar, and most bizarrely there is the Church of Halawa. This is an offshoot sect of the Church of Tralladar, more of a cult really, that is under the belief that Duke Karameikos is actually the legendary Tralladaran King Halawa reborn. One of the things that Halston does so right here is take the various histories and conflicts presented in the previous adventure modules and weave them together into a cohesive whole to present a realm full of hope and promise and room to grow, but rife with conflict and evil. Whether you want to run an exploration game where the characters attempt to tame the wilds of the north and seek titles and holdings for themselves, or a game of political intrigue and subterfuge, such stories are waiting to be told here. In fact, Alston does a great job with specific examples on how politics can lead to adventures and offers a ton of adventure hooks for all levels of play. There are rules for acquiring titles for player characters, the economics of the duchy, and troop counts so the DM can run grand battles using the War Machine rules from the companion set. Karameikos is a rich and vibrant campaign setting, and this supplement very ably lays out its structure, its economics, and its internal conflicts, and then frames everything in such a way that it can be mined and cultivated by the DM for rich D&D adventures. The conflict between the Phaeacian settlers and the Tralladar is a prime example. In his youth, Duke Karameikos was not always the most diplomatic or skilled in handling relationships with the natives. In his exuberance to secure his holdings and establish his duchy, it frequently resulted in bad feelings with Tralladaran noble houses and native citizens. Nowhere was this more apparent than with his bizarre cousin, Ludwig von Hendricks, who chose to conquer his holdings and oust the traditional noble houses violently and establish a rather brutal barony. Sadly, during this time there were a variety of reports of Phaeacian settlers and lords brutalizing the natives. Quite a few of these stories turned out to be exaggerated or flat out false, as Tralladaran nobles sought to spread rumors to show the new duke in a bad light. Thus, when reports of his cousin Hendricks' improprieties found their way to him, the duke dismissed them as simply false rumors like the others. This lapse in judgment cost him, and now the baron's schemes and plots the duke's demise. The criminal organization, the Iron Ring, secretly is based there in Fort Doom, stealing citizens to be sold to foreign lands for slaves. Along with his personal magician Bargle the Infamous, The Black Eagle Barony is a powerful force for evil in Karameikos. The 1994 release, Karameikos Kingdom of Adventure, where TSR attempted to move Mystara to the second edition of the advanced D&D game, really misses the mark. Most of the conflicts presented here are resolved, and not much was introduced on creating new ones. Baron von Hendrix is gone and defeated. Bargle the Infamous is on the run. The country is now a full-fledged kingdom, and much of the internal strife is dismissed. The Gazetteer does a fantastic job of detailing the various personalities of the Duchy, from the Theatian and Traladaran noble houses, the clerical leaders of the various churches, the ambassadors from other countries, and so on, many of them certainly to show up in Adventures in Karameikos in one capacity or the other. The culture of the place is explored in great detail. The calendar is well documented with its names for the months, days of the week, the holidays, and so on. Various customs and traditions are explored, and Alston does a great job of making what could have been just your basic by-the-numbers, cardboard cutout medieval D&D setting into something with a very distinctive Eastern European Slavic feel. One of my favorite customs is the shearing ceremony, which is a native Traladaran custom but was quickly adopted by the Theatian settlers. Essentially, when a Karameikan youth approaches adulthood, either he will approach his parents or they will approach him with the news that it is time for the shearing. A ceremony is held, and relatives and family and friends are gathered, and he is dressed in traveling gear. The bottom of his cloak is sheared off and left ragged, denoting his new condition, that of an impoverished traveler. From that point, the youth is a friend of the family, but not part of it, until, through adventure and deed, he has proven his worth. When so deemed by his parents, a return ceremony is held, and he is bestowed the family coat of arms and once again considered part of the family. Traditionally, young women are not required to go through this ordeal, but they may voluntarily approach their parents to do so if they like. Honestly, this single thing in my own Karameikos campaigns has been the basis for too many stories to count. Obviously, players are keen to adopt this background element for their characters, and as DM, I've based several adventures on noble parents approaching the heroes to help in locating their missing child. If you want to begin a story that leads to the Black Eagle Barony and the Iron Ring Slavers, a missing sheared youth is a good way to go, as they are ripe for targeting by the Iron Ring. The Gazetteer provides some in-depth rules and discussion on social standing and titles, and goes into great detail on how player characters can move up the social ladder in the Duchy from lord or lady to a full-fledged land-owning baron or baroness. Regardless of character race or class, there are rules for determining social standing, to naming conventions based on whether the character is of Theatian or Traladaran descent. Further, for the first time, a skill system is introduced for the D&D game. It is rudimentary, with the DM and player expected to come up with appropriate types of skills, but the groundwork is laid here and would ultimately evolve into a full-fledged skill system for the game. Obviously, this supplement is great if you're using an OSR game system like Labyrinth Lord or Old School Essentials, Castles and Crusades, or even its intended rule set, the D&D Rule Cyclopedia. However, given most of the information given here is system agnostic, you could use this with any iteration of the game. The evocative and excellent cover artwork for this supplement is by Clyde Caldwell, and interior art is by Stephen Fabian. There is real personality here, and you can definitely get a sense of the NPC's character just from Fabian's portrayals here. For example, the cold, steely plotting of Magda Marilenev, or even the regal bearing of Stephen Karameikos and his family in their portraits, to the cold, calculating evil of Baron von Hendrix and the mage Bargle. His artwork is phenomenal at character portrayal. Unfortunately, there's not much in the way of geographical portrayals, buildings and such, and there's pages and pages of unbroken walls of text. Getting a copy of the Duchy of Karameikos has never been easier. Of course, prices on auction houses are really out of this world, running around $80 for an original copy in decent condition, but Drive-Thru RPG's print version is available for only $7.50. Now, I have this POD myself, and it's the first one I've gotten from them that utilizes the inner card stack covers like the original print. And as you can see here, it just looks great. The interior map reprints are outstanding, and overall the reprint looks as good as the original. This is really one of the best Gazetteer reprints I've seen. A link for the POD is in the description. So let's take a look at Gazetteer 1, the Grand Duchy of Karameikos, on my D20 scale of style, presentation, and value. Style-wise, this is the one that started the entire line, and it's clear that there was a lot of planning and discussion put into the format. As the line progressed, the format would be further refined. Frequently, there would be separate player and DM booklets, but overall, what you see in this book is how the entire line was, and it works very well. It is both appealing and functional. For me, Stephen Fabian's work, while very technical, is hit or miss with me. Fabian is really great at depicting people's facial expressions and conveying emotions and action, but there's not any real depictions of geography or landscapes at all here. Now, I'm going to rate this a 15. As far as presentation, this supplement sets out to present a complete campaign setting. It conveys tone and provides ample information to allow DMs and players to create characters and telling long-term stories, and it does so in an efficient and frequently entertaining manner. You can run a vibrant campaign here for years. The amount of setting detail that Alston manages to cram into just 64 pages is astounding. Unfortunately, while organized very well, there is no index, so I'm going to rate this a 17. For value, I'm going to base this rating primarily on the print-on-demand version from Drive-Thru RPG. The reason is that this is an all-in-one booklet, and that really plays into the strengths of the print-on-demand format. Furthermore, the format is utilized very efficiently by Drive-Thru RPG with inside cover printings that emulate the original and map reproductions that fill the page nicely and still provide utility. In fact, maybe even better than a clumsy to use while sitting full-sized poster map. On that basis, I'm going to rate this a 19. And that brings my overall rating for Gazetteer 1, the Grand Duchy of Karameikos, to a 17. Very good. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you found this video informative and useful. I hope you're enjoying my walk down memory lane with my coverage of the Gazetteer series. This Saturday, I'll have a great OSR game review for you. Many of you have consistently requested this, so I contacted Northwind Adventures by email about doing a review on Astounding Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. And to my surprise, not only did they actually know who I was, they very generously sent me a copy of their massive 600-page rulebook to review. So look for that this Saturday. As usual, I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to my Patreons. If you enjoyed this review, please subscribe and click the little bell so you'll get updates when I add new content. Please give this video a like, comment, and share. Join the channel's Facebook page, RPG Reviews, and consider supporting the channel by becoming a Patreon yourself. Or, alternatively, you can just send a tip through the PayPal tip jar link in the description. As always, my friends, may your D20 roll true and game on.